Welcome to Business Prowess with Raphael and Dr. Andrea. Our show will bring you the best insights, ideas, and inspiration from successful entrepreneurs and CEOs in the business world. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn from the best and stay ahead of the game. Sifu Raphael is the founder of 5 unique shows. He's a fitness professional, solutions expert, executive coach, and head instructor at Max Martial Arts and Fitness in New York. Dr. Andrea Adams Miller is an award-winning international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the Red Carpet Connection Publicity, Publishing, and Talent Agency, and CEO of IgniteYourRelationship.com. Known as the Dream Maker, she makes visionaries' dreams come true, bigger than they ever dare to desire.
All right. Good morning, Dr. Andrea. How are you today?
Hunky and Dory all in one.
Oh, I like it. Hunky and Dory. And beautiful as usual.
Thank you.
So we are super excited. And guess what I did? I just found out we have 2 guests and we know their codes because we are code breakers. So guess what? We found out what Greg's is. Greg is knowledge, action, blueprint, and nurturing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I guessed his action is last and it's actually second. And cool. I haven't met any knowledge actions. He'll be my first one that I've met.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Here he is, and Richard as well. Thank you, gentlemen.
Good morning.
You
Good
guys
to be here.
Yes.
I like more raw. I like that. More raw. Your war room.
It works both directions. My initials, everything. So it works.
I love it. I love it. So welcome, guys. I'm so glad to meet you and have you here with us. And, Sifu and I, when we start, for those of you who are watching the show for the first time, don't know what we're talking about when we say we're cracking the code, we use a personality assessment written by a friend of ours who has a beautiful company. And this personality assessment, it's science-based. And what we've been able to do is by understanding how people think and function, including how they think and function when they're under stress or pressure, helps us to connect with people at a deeper level in a way so that our rapport is better. So really it's about rapport and how do we connect with people the best. And so we're super excited because Richard, with him being his first 2 being action and my brain just went blueprint. That means he not only does he take action, but he does it in a systemization way. So usually they have more free time and more fun, and they usually have more income coming in because they've got the processes set down. And for Greg, he's knowledge in action, and so I've not met a knowledge action yet. So I'm excited to learn more about Greg today. So cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, today we are unleashing mastery and strategy. And I think this is perfect for what we're doing right here. So, gentlemen, what would you say someone who would like to learn how to unleash their mastery? What are the steps you think that they would, I know I'm not saying think, but that you can share with the audience on what steps they can take to unleash their mastery that they have inside?
I'm going to defer to Richard first. I got to think about that.
Okay. I like being first. First is a good place to be. I'll tell you what, to unleash your mastery, first of all, I hope you've mastered something before you attempt to unleash it. That's kind of important. A lot of times people don't, there's different levels of mastery, right? We're all at different levels, just like degrees in a belt. If you talk about the black belt, important thing is to me, to unleash it, you need a vehicle. You need a vehicle to unleash your mastery. So that's the thing. You could stand on the corner and tell people how amazing you are and all the things you know. That's not going to do a lot for you. Okay, maybe get you pushed into the traffic. Okay, so you really want to have a vehicle that you can travel with this. So if we go from an entrepreneurial standpoint, what does that look like? Are you going to be a coach? Are you going to write content? Are you going to be a consultant? And go and show people how to do things? Are you going to teach? You're going to be a trainer? Are you going to train the sales team because you're a master salesperson? So I think the key is really finding the vehicle that you can use that mastery with.
Love it. Richard, I would love to unleash your mastery with your website? If you can share it with us.
You know what? I'm sorry. I can't seem to. I'm trying to get to the.
You can just tell us and then I can type it for you.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. SharpenTheSpearCoaching.com.
SharpenTheSpearCoaching.com. No wonder you.
It's a lot of letters.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something you think of. It's something you think of after you get it.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
You know,
Well,
Richard, I actually use spears.
Raphael.
Go ahead. You were saying, but I use spears. So sharpening them. I actually had a student who I was teaching how to use the spear, and he said, "Sifu, can I sharpen my spear?" And I said, "Well, you're actually working with other people, so I don't know if that's going to be a great idea at this point. So maybe not that spear, right?"
All right. I'm typing while you guys, Greg, have you had enough thought?
Yeah, I think so. Well,
Cool.
since knowledge, I had to think through this, right? So here's my answer. I mean, I think the first thing you have to do is figure out, as kind of Richard alluded to, figure out what is your why in life? Like, why do you exist, right? I mean, we all go through different jobs and are most likely unhappy in many of those throughout our career until we find something that really is passionate for us, right? And for me, as I explained about my book, that was teaching. That was teaching others, sharing my knowledge with others. And whether it was in the Hershey environment where I worked for 23 years or later in the academic world. So I think the first thing is finding that why, but then to unleash that knowledge, I think you have to find the right vehicle, as Richard kind of alluded to share that knowledge with others. So I went through a unbelievably great career where I enjoyed my years at Hershey for 23 years, got a chance to share a lot of knowledge with the fellow workers and some of our guests that come through the Hershey operations. But more importantly, I think it was kind of like preparation for me to get into academia and truly do what I love, which was teaching others in front of, a group of 25, 35 students. And when I went to University of Illinois, that was my vehicle for doing that for 7 years. Unfortunately, COVID had a little bit of an impact on cutting that a little bit shorter than I originally intended, but that's life. So I just think you have to find your why and then get the right vehicle to share, unleash that knowledge with others.
Absolutely. And this is the book he was talking about, which is a great book. And I love, if you get to read the book, how, man, he is so in love with his wife. I love it.
34 years.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. And by the way, Emilio Roman, thank you for joining us, my friend. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here with us. And anybody watching, please come in and say hello. We love hearing from everyone who is either watching or even on the replay. Hit hashtag replay, and we'd love to know what you think of the show so far. So, Dr. Andrea, same question for you, if you don't mind.
Well, I was typing, so when I'm typing, I'm not listening. So
Okay.
repeat the question.
The question is, how do you feel? How can we give somebody the steps to unleash their mastery?
So I did hear it. Thank you for repeating it, though. So for me, I see that the ability for people to unleash their mastery needs to come from their ability to have the confidence and the self-worth to be authentic and share deep from what they really can have, what they have in them and what they have learned outside of them. So I think there's two parts of that mastery: the mastery of who they are and how they show up, and then the mastery of the skills or lessons that they've learned and how well they can share that with other people. So for me, I would want to dive into mindset first, and to, if there is any limiting beliefs, or if there's some anchoring of confidence or anchoring of any other tools and besides spears and other tools that we can get them to sharpen, and that we can do that through anchoring some different ways, through mindset, through neuro-linguistic programming, and through hypnosis and other modules and tools that I use, and then that they can do that even better. So that would be my way of sharpening.
I love it. For me, it's always been a collection of those tools, right? In order to be able to say I'm proficient at something. I mean, if you're going to build something, right? If you're building a Lego, it's understanding where they go. So putting all the pieces together, I think makes it not only functional, so you can teach it again and unleash that mastery within you, but I think putting it, and this is the blueprint, right? Putting it in order so that when you do share it with others, there's some clarity in there. Because we can tell somebody, do this, do that, but if we didn't put it in the right order, they're going to come back with some weird stuff. And I think that putting it in the right order for them, it's so that it makes sense for them. And one of the things that I'm always teaching anybody that I teach is, okay, now teach it back to me. Because then I know that you understood it that way. Once you understand it, it is yours. You own it. I no longer own it. I gave it to you. This is the gift. Now, once you can teach it back to me, it's yours, buddy.
That's a great idea, Sifu, because I did that in my classes at times, teaching the exciting world of accounting, which is obviously not so exciting for a lot of people. But I found that if you could reverse that role around a little bit and let the students, after they've heard you talk about a topic, let them teach it to others, boy, that's when you know they're getting it, right? I mean, that's either they're getting it or not. It's obvious at that point.
Yeah, we'd always do a simple, I'll show you, then I'll do it with you, then I'll watch you do it, then you're on your own. One thing I learned with my guys, especially in the field, was because they were awesome, but if I taught them wrong, they would do it wrong every single time. So they're that good. So you have to know what you're doing first. Teach them correctly, they will do it correctly every time. But if you don't start in the right place, so you got to be on your A game when you're teaching people. That's for sure.
Well, that goes with what you do, Sifu, because then they fall back to their skills and they automatically do what they were taught right. So if you are especially if you're, well, Sifu, you take this over. Talk about weapons.
Well, consider this. A lot of people will say, well, I'm going to do perfect practice. I said, really? How do you do that? Because teach me, because I don't know how to do perfect practice, and I've never met a perfect person. And if anybody here listening or you guys know a perfect person, please, I want to have coffee with them. But yeah, I'm going to buy them a meal. So when we practice anything, we have to understand that we're going to make mistakes. So the thing for me is always practice it, but then make sure somebody else can see the results of that practice to make sure it comes out okay. So for example, if I'm sending somebody on a sales call, I'm going to go, before you go on that sales call, sell me, so that we can go through the little things that are going on. I trained somebody, they were going for a job interview, and I said, they said, what are you going to tell them? They're like, oh, I'm like, wait a minute. I said, why don't we practice? And they're like, okay. I said, you have 20 minutes? Yeah. It wound up to be an hour and 20 minutes because I kept, why are you saying this? How come you're doing it? How come? And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. This was the best session I've had in a long time because you made me think so differently. And then I said, you're not just going on an interview and saying, yeah, I'm here for the job. No, you have to qualify them because you're going to work for them. This is not just them hiring you. You're spending your time. You're trading your time for money. And how valuable is your time? That's the real question.
I think one of the things that I teach a lot too is with my clients is imperfect action. It's always about taking those steps. Too many people are, getting ready to get ready. They rehearse all the time. Like you got to get out and do, because the mistakes you make in imperfect action will stick with you. You'll correct so much faster because you did it in real time. So I think it's real effective. But I love role playing. That's a huge thing I do in sales. Role playing is everything, because if you automate a process, I have a sales presentation process, right? You got to role play. When one guy's closing at 43% and another guy's closing at 27%, you say, run through it. right, Sifu? So you run through what you're doing. Well, why are you skipping this portion? Well, that's not really important. Oh, it's important. That's why it's there. So if you do it, you'll watch your close rates go up to 47%. Okay, do that. Okay, sure enough. So it's very much the imperfect action concept.
I'd like to share two things. One is I taught as well, Greg, and in teaching, one of the things, and we've all agreed here that when the other person teaches something back to you, then that's almost when they learn. It's like when it sinks in.
Right.
And so I also call that synthesis. So I want them to make it theirs. So they do take the top training, and then they might add some little pieces or nuances that of who they are to sharpen it better to fit them. And at the same time, to go with what Richard was saying, when they have, and with Sifu, with martial arts or anything like that, when you have the foundation, and we do this with mindset, when we teach the foundation, we teach it almost it's so rigorous that it almost seems at times not fun, because we don't want any shift while we're teaching it. But once it's taught and once you've mastered it, then you can massage it and make it your own. And one of the things I love about action takers, with Sifu and Richard being action takers, is their resilience is ridiculously high. So confidence is high. You guys, when you talk about imperfect action, sometimes you guys will do shit that I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And you do it anyways. And then, like me as a publicist, I'm thinking, oh, and I got to think of preventative reputation management, but it works. It works for you, and you do it. And some things do not work, and you make it work. Even though it doesn't work, you make it work. And I love that. You guys just somehow will wrap things that were not the way they should be, and you make them like that's it now. You make them trends sometimes.
You know what I think is important about that, Andrea, is everyone's got this picture in their mind. Like Sifu, your guy was going for the job interview. He's got a picture in his mind of what's going to happen, but that's in his mind. When I trained someone in the box, right, they got this thing, and I got mitts on. As soon as I start throwing shots at them, those thoughts have disappeared. They're bending over, their head goes down, they're backing away. They don't know what's going on. And they just got hit like 9 times, okay, in like half a second. So it's very much that whole reason to do it for real. That's where learning takes place. You got to get it out of your head. It's got to be verbalized. It's got to be written, whatever it is. If you can take that action, it exponentially increases your chances for success and improvement.
Yeah. One of the things that Patrick, thank you for joining us. Here's Patrick. You can think about it forever and die doing nothing. I love that.
Well,
but what happened is I got a phone call from this gentleman, and he said to me, I got to tell you, the time we spent together going over my process of going on this interview, not only did it help me, but I got a position I did not expect. I got a higher position because of the conversation we had. And that's all about role playing. But we didn't just talk about it. He took action because he went on the interview. And because it was clear in his mind what he needed to do, not only did he impress upon them that he was the right candidate, but he impressed upon them that he was the best candidate, and they gave him a higher position than he was looking for. So it's all those little things that we need to do in order to create that mastery inside of us. And that is rehearsal. That is practice. Dr. Andrea, she's in some shows, and you don't think she just shows up and like, I didn't rehearse, I'm just here. No, she rehearses. She goes to practices. And this is why she is amazing when she is in a show. You got to hear this woman sing. She's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm trying out for another play here in a couple of weeks. It's a comedy where my name will be something like, Gayleen or Ladine or Laverne, or I get to talk all Southern and talk like this. Very fun. And I do serious shows and do musicals. And it's, I had the opportunity to be on stage with Sir Anthony Hopkins years ago, and we were backstage, and the way he talked to me about who he was and how he hones his craft, it was something that I repeat often because I want people to hear it. He hires between 3 to 7 coaches per show that he does. And look at how many awards that man has won for all these amazing plays throughout his lifetime. And yet, or movies and so forth. And yet he still does that. And what I have learned is the people that I've coached, I've hired multiple coaches throughout my lifetime. And those coaches also still have coaches. So they might be multimillionaires, and they still have coaches themselves. And so it's the people who are constantly willing to craft who they are, hone their craft, sharpen their spear. Sifu, we got to come up with things for Greg and Sifu. What do you do? I'm saying hone your craft. I'm borrowing that from Sir Anthony Hopkins. We've got sharpen your spear over here. What do you two guys do? What's your action on your thing?
Hit your target.
Hit your target.
Mine would be keep working hard until you get to that goal you've always wanted to achieve. You got to work it.
You have to work it. That is exactly it. Yeah. So if you guys are interested, across the screen, you will see we're going to put the websites up. I have a website. Dr. Andrea has a website. Richard has one. And Greg has one. So anytime, go ahead and go to the websites, check them out. We don't put these up just because we want to put them up. They have great content. So we suggest take the time and check them out. That's it. I'm done.
It's an open floor. Let's start tearing it up.
It is an open floor.
So Greg, you're with Greg being a knowledge action person. So theoretically, that would mean that you want information. So you want research, you want to know the who, what, why, when, how. And as soon as you have those things filled, you'll take action and do it. So are you a knowledge person who goes deep and you have to know every single detail? Or are you more a knowledge? Like I'm more knowledge, like if I just have the basic understanding, then I can take action, no problem. Or do you need to dig through the weeds?
No, I'm not. I don't have to go to the nth degree, quite honestly, Dr. Andrea. I think for me, for example, when I wrote the book, that was putting me way outside of my comfort zone. I'm a numbers person, right? I'm an accountant by trade. So for me to put words on a page was really challenging for me. But I think the best way to do it is, as we just said, is you just have to, dig in and get through the weeds and get it done. And for me, it was a 5-month process initially through working with Georgetown University on a book writing course. And it put me in all kinds of uncomfortable. But to your point, I did lots of research for that book. Did I dive into the 100th degree? No. I just need to go in and research a topic, for example, career changes. That was one of the topics of my book, one of the chapters. I did a lot of research on career changes and found some really good stuff out there, both in publications as well as TED Talks. To me, it's an amazing amount of information for us today, just on TED Talks out there that people are giving lots of great information. So, to answer your question, I love the facts. I mean, I'm a fact-based person. I'm a knowledge person. I like to get all the details, but I don't need to dig into the nth degree. I just want to make sure I get it right.
Lovely. Love it. What we've learned is all 4 categories are important, and all 4 categories are inherently inside of all of us. It's just that some we've worked on, express easier, work better for us. And then, so just to give you guys an idea, the third one in our 4 letters, when we put them together, is the one that we said when you're under pressure, how you might respond. And it doesn't have to be negative pressure. It's just pressure. So it could be good pressure. When things are all happening and really fun and positive, that's also considered pressure. And so do you know what Richard and Greg's third one is, Sifu?
I can tell you in a second. They should get to know.
All right. So Sifu's is knowledge.
Richard's is nurturing is his third one, right?
Oh.
I look like a nurturer, don't I?
Only under pressure. So when things come to a little bit of a grind there on you, then all of a sudden you're like, hey, wait, are you okay? Is this person okay? Got to make sure everybody's all right. So I would imagine for you in your war room, like people are selling, they're doing things, they're doing their processes, everything's going, and like there might be some kind of glitch in the system, and all of a sudden you're like, is everybody okay? That's when you do an assessment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. I think there's some things from the nurturing standpoint. What I lack, Andrea? I'm really low on the empathy chart. Okay. I've had to teach myself empathy. I just didn't have a lot. I'm a guy who thrives on negative reinforcement. Okay. Part of the military thing and all that stuff too. And not many people do. So when I train people, I can train with negative reinforcement. And I mean physically train, do physical training, box, stuff like that. And it doesn't work with a lot of people. It's kind of, you just hurt their feelings. Me, it makes me better. Like you talk about pressure. So I'm a steel sculptor, right? So I do all that. So I used to, I don't do it anymore. But people would give me a commission to do a piece. And I say, okay, when would you like it done? Oh, whenever. I go, oh yeah, that time doesn't work for me. I don't do, you want whenever, it'll be never. Okay. It'll be the last part. Never. Okay. So, because I need pressure, but if you tell me you want it tomorrow, guess what? You'll have it. I work all night till it's done. I only work under pressure. I don't work with lax timeframes. I don't work with, whenever you get to it, wow, you are talking to the wrong guy. Because I just don't operate that way. I thrive under pressure.
That's your blueprint right there. That's your second calling, right? Your second letter. So you're an A, B, and K. So that's your blueprint. That's like, you need that structure, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And, yeah. I like the fact that you said, if you say whenever, it's never, because it's true. That means you're so lazy daisy. It's never going to get done. You know what? You'll be happy. Because if you say, how's that going? You go, it's going great. Meanwhile, you haven't done anything.
Well, I get excited about taking action. So when I like problem solving under pressure. I mean, that's why I worked in law enforcement. I was a 911 operator. There's nothing. That's the adrenaline, the excitement and adrenaline, and even working in publicity where people I need something now, and it's midnight, and they need it at 2 a.m. I'm like, woohoo, which I don't like that anymore. Like personally, don't like it, but I do get it done. And people do tend to call me for emergency management in the middle of the night for whatever it is.
I had a commission. I got commissioned for a sign for a boutique in Chicago. And she, I want to come out and see it when you're halfway done. I'm like, yeah, I don't really work that way. I don't get to see it. Well, I really want to come out. Okay. So she came out to my yard making thing. It was just a 14-inch steel pipe I had and like a 20-foot piece of solid round bar, 1-inch bent. I welded it to it and said, yeah, it's out there. Go take a look halfway. Right. So I get this message. What a disappointment. I thought, well, she goes on to all the stuff, how terrible I am. The thing's not done. And like a week later, 2 weeks later, I'm putting this thing in. So I do it on a Sunday. I install this whole thing. It cantilevers over the sidewalk and it moves with the wind. And it's spectacular, right? It looks like a tree and everything and vines. And so here's the next message from her. You're the master. It's unbelievable. I've never seen something. I go, can I play the other message? The one with, right. You don't peek under the canvas, right? You don't peek under the cover on the painting until it's finished. So that's the same principle, like just let me do the work. Mm-hmm. When I get it done, it's going to be the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. To me, the only people that should see your before and after is whoever's training you. Same thing if you're going to be doing a martial arts show and you have somebody come and watch an early rehearsal, they're going to say these people are terrible because they haven't practiced it. If someone's reading the early version of your book, Greg, they may say, right. Why is anybody reading this until they read the end?
They would have threw it away.
Yeah. And the same thing for theater, dress rehearsal is still a dress rehearsal. That is the night that we don't mind a couple people being there so that we can practice the timing for laughs because we're not had any, audience members to be there. But I'm a photographer as well. And I'll have people want me to send my pictures to the brawl. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, because there may be a picture that's completely, well, here, I'll give you an example. You may I may take the picture and it looks like this. And then I work with it and then it looks like that.
You didn't see anything you just showed us.
I mean, we
Two
didn't see it,
different
but
pictures. Yeah. Light, no light. That's all I did is turn my
Oh,
light off.
oh,
I saw the
Yeah.
light.
I caught
This
that.
is a
I did
different
catch that.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a picture with no light, and then I take it and run it through my Lightroom, and then all of a sudden it has brilliance on it. Two different pictures. They're gonna say, "Oh, well, that one didn't do anything for me." So different, and then just editing. Well, I mean, even that, like, even I can edit. Like, oh, do you want this color or do I like this color? Or we just change it. I can change things completely. And it can be painstakingly forever. And I had one, sometimes it was completely black, like you couldn't see anybody in the picture at all, but I was able to manipulate it so that you could see a picture like this. And I'm like, really? You want my pictures raw? Okay. Or they might be like this, where the head's this big.
Or it can be black and
this
white.
to crop it so they can see the whole face. Yeah, Sifu's doing it right now. Yeah, that picture is totally different picture than that. Oh yeah,
Oh, my
that's a
goodness.
great
What's
picture.
going on
There's
there?
the tan.
You look like some kind of satanistic weirdo thing.
Get out in the sun too much.
Yeah, fun. But yes,
Right?
for an artist, especially, I can imagine with your steelwork, they have no idea what that would look like at the end. Did you say you're not doing it anymore, though?
Correct.
Just because
I'm
you
all-
moved on to something else, or?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. So I did that. I did my custom water features, all this for about 20 years. And when things collapsed in 08, 09, I'm a very all or nothing person. So when I stop, I stop. Sell everything. Don't do it. Don't pick it up again. It's not probably the best avenue. As my wife would let me know, you didn't have to like completely quit everything, but that's how I operate. I'm a focused person. I just want to go on to the next challenge and give everything I have to that. So
Yeah.
it is kind of like that. But
Yes, that sounds like an action person.
I did. Here's you talk about the different pictures and the lighting. I got commissioned by the Shed Aquarium in Chicago to do a big feature that was going to be on Michigan Avenue for like 6 months or whatever, for a big project they were doing. They wanted me to give them a drawing. I said, well, I don't draw. I don't have that capability. Well, it's okay. Just draw something. This is the head designer, and they brought it and gave it. And I saw them well after I made it. It was great. They sold it to North Carolina or somewhere. And he goes, well, I forgot to tell you when I was presenting who's going to do these pieces. And I sent your picture around, like everyone's like laughing, saying, are you kidding? Is this a joke? It was like a 3-year-old drew it. It was like if I had a crayon and a 3-year-old, like, I tell you, I can't draw. And he's like, no, you have to see his work. It's going to be okay. It's going to be. So,
that is hysterical.
Yeah. I
You
just said,
set the bar low, Richard, then usually you jump above it.
well, even my wife said, I don't draw stuff because that sets an expectation for one.
Yeah, that is a
doesn't look
whole
like a drawing. Yeah, it's
total difference. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you want me to do ballet, or do you want me to just do a little bit of a
right.
stage dancing? Two different things. If you want me to do ballet, ain't happening.
I said I don't do two of anything, so you're getting a one of a kind.
That's it.
This is how it works.
It's very funny. You and I are very similar, Richard, because I've never taught the same class twice, ever. And I've
Man after my own heart, Sifu. Man after my own heart.
That seems weird. That for Richard, that seems like that goes against your blueprint of doing processes of doing it. But if you do something new every time, but yet it follows the same pattern, maybe.
Well, that's his action, right?
Yeah, it's. I'm kind of an odd duck, Andrew. It's how it is.
I'm learning that. So, Greg, you keep talking about your book. Why don't you tell us more about your book? What's it called? What is it?
Yeah. The book is called Checkmate, and no, it's not about the game of chess, but I do use chess analogies throughout the book.
Oh.
It's 12 chapters. It's a pretty easy read, 150 pages, but it covers a multitude of topics that affects all of us. It talks about family, relationships, careers, both changes and how to make a better career out of what you're trying to do. Then also transition, right? I got transitioned to academia. We talk about that. And then also it gets into, what really drives our happiness. Like for me, it's two things: spending time with my wife and family, and also playing chess. I love playing the game of chess. So I just got off a tournament here in Connecticut this past weekend. I lost to a senior in my final round, senior in high school, right? He's probably like 48 years younger than I am. But it was the greatest experience because I had a really good run in the tournament, went 4 wins, 1 loss. and he was just a better player. So, I look at chess as like life. You take your ups and downs, and you learn from the one where you lose. You probably learn more from those than from the wins. And that's what the book's all about, is trying to find our true happiness.
Lovely. I have never learned to play chess. I've always wanted to, but never taken the time to do it. We've bought some chess boards throughout the years, and then
It's a great
I
game.
never did anything. I think the kids played with the pieces, just as like, hello, horse, But I did recently, I just peeked and looked too. I read something within the last couple of days about how many moves there are on a chess game.
Yeah.
And I just re-looked that up. Do you know what it is, Greg?
I don't know. It's some phenomenal number. I can tell you, after the first 4 moves of each player, it's like 90-some million different options at that point. After the first 4 moves by each player.
Well, see, that's when I read that there was an infinite. It says an average chess game has 40 moves. However,
But the combination.
they say the complexity, there's at least 10,120 based on that there's 103 moves for each pair of moves. And so, but if illegal moves are excluded, the number of positions is only 1,040. But I question that. So I'm not obviously looking up.
I'll put it simpler. I've played chess on and off for, better part of 50 years now. I've never played the same game twice. And I've played literally thousands of games.
Strategy. It's all about strategy.
It is.
Why I love it.
It's the key.
I love chess because it allows you to forward think.
Yeah. And actually, it's really good for your strategic thinking abilities.
And that's the next part of our conversation here today. First one was unleashing mastery and strategy. So when we consider strategy, how do we want to unleash that mastery? Because Richard does not let anybody look, because he will give a weird picture or just a piece of rebar. But when we can consider that internally we see, like Richard knows what it's going to come out to be like, kind of, right? Same thing for me. I'm an artist. I draw. And a lot of times I know what the end result is going to be. But sometimes when I'm in it, I get so deep into it that all of a sudden, like, oh, I need to change it right here. This little part, it's going to change. And it changes the whole concept. Sometimes in a big way, sometimes just in a little way. And I'm sure, Richard, you also know where I made a mistake in this part, but nobody else knows. One of the things
no mistakes in art. I taught art. There are no mistakes in art, is what I taught.
Right.
I made them say it over and over and over again. They were not allowed to get upset about a mistake because there's no mistakes in art.
One of the things I tell my students all the time is, do you like fudge? Yeah. I said, exactly. So it doesn't matter what it looks like. What it matters is what it tastes like. So fudge it all, and you'll be okay.
I think
Well, one place, if we fudge it, it could be a problem. Wait, Richard, go ahead before I switch.
I was going to say, from a strategy standpoint, I teach strategy in my business coaching, right? It's all strategic vision and strategic goal setting and strategic decision drivers, things like that. But the key to that is flexibility, right? Strategy is great, but you have to have flexibility. And there's a great saying that applies to this. No battle plan ever survives the first shot. You got it all laid out, we're going to do it, and then the bullets start flying and everything goes left and right and backwards, right? So that's what it is. So you have to have that ability. Strategy is critical, right, for vision, for expansion, things like that. But you have to be able to be flexible at that same time.
So what I was going to say as I was thinking about Greg and the accounting, so we're all, thinking of creative ways that we can do things. So everything that we're talking about is creative, and we can manipulate it and move it. And so can accounting. You can create things too as an accountant.
Ask Enron, right? Ask Enron. They did.
Yeah, right.
You shouldn't do. The penalties could be greater if Greg were to do that. However, at the same time, whether someone, takes a standard deduction, or whether itemizes things, or whether they, write all their mileage down for everything they do versus something else, can make such a big difference in how your money works or how it looks, or whether you're charging things to one card where there's a little variance of point spread. Greg, elaborate on that.
Well, I'm not a tax person, so I don't even want to talk taxes at all. But I do discuss personal finances in the book, and I think this is kind of a key thing for the listeners to hear is, depending on what stage of life we're in, whether in our 20s and 30s or whether in our 50s and 60s, kind of near retirement, money is an important factor for all of us, right, in one form or another, right? So I think what I talk about with both my students as well as some of the people I work with at Hershey is, do the basic block and tackling things. I'm very high on having a budget. I think that's important, just to have a kind of a blueprint, what you follow financially, is how you spend your money. B, I also talk about this in the book about having lots of discussions with your significant other. So my wife and I, she absolutely hates finance, but we have a monthly, what we call budget date, where we go out to a local restaurant, have a nice bottle of wine, and guess what? We get to talk about finances for the hour and a half. And I think that's important for people to understand, is that the more you talk about it, the more comfortable you become with the topic of money. Because a lot of us, especially in America, we think that's a horrible topic to discuss in any kind of a public setting. But I think it's important to talk about that, get your significant other on the same page as you. And boy, that's where you reach your goals a lot quicker. Like, that's how my wife and I retired, me at 60, 61, and she at 55. We wouldn't have had that if we didn't have a blueprint to get there, right? So I think that's important.
One of the things I do is I talk to my kids about money all the time. I started when they were like 3.
That's great.
I opened up 4 different bank accounts for each one of them. And also they had piggy banks and they did drawings and everything. And I taught them investing, how to do all these different things, how to tithe, how to save for a rainy day, how to save for fun, so they understand money. One of my kids, he just turned 20. He became a car collector. And I'm not talking cheap cars. He's got like heavy duty, high priced cars that he's collecting. I'm like, but you're not driving them all. He goes, yeah, Dad, but you don't understand. It's a good investment. I'm like, okay, that's your thing. You keep doing it. But when we can discuss finances with our significant other and our children, we're setting them up for success compared to them waiting for us to die so they can get the inheritance.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want that.
Well, we've actually been talking about that, just being very candid about it, because my father-in-law is 86 and a half. And he'd had a stroke, and so we're talking about that, like, how do things look and how will things be, and then so we're talking to our children about how things will be and how to process it, because we want to make it easier for them. And then we were joking with them. Now, you do realize, kids, that we're probably going to be around another 30, 40 years if we have our way. So don't be killing yourself tomorrow. However, if something should happen, this is how it would be, because I want those conversations to be there. To me, strategy is you have a plan A, B, C, and D, because you have an idea of a way things are going to go, just like what you were mentioning, Richard, with the bullet. So I talk about hitting your target market every time, and that comes from a background in law enforcement. I thought about, when you're shooting a gun and when you're trying to hit a target, if that target doesn't hit where you needed it, you need to be able to handle the repercussions of what else just happened on where, if that bullet went astray. And then how do you make that good, and how do you make positive out of it? And so for me, I'm just constantly thinking about that. And as a publicity and business consultant, the strategy is where do you really want to go? Where do we want to go now? Where do we go if something goes awry? So then that way we're constantly being able to shift at any moment, can shift and move, because we need to follow the ROI and the what's most feasible to you. So that way, if things like the economy has a crazy thing, which it sounds like it may again, or we have another pandemic come up or whatever, how do we handle it and move on? So that all of a sudden now we found a way to make positive of whatever craziness is happening out there in the world.
Yeah, I think one thing I did, just back to the kids thing too, real quick, is my kids are young, because I've always encouraged entrepreneurship. I'm like, this is, and of course it's all their choice, right? They can,
Mhm.
maybe they're wired for it, maybe they're not. But I remember one day my kids were asking me, we're talking about money. I had a few dollar bills. I said, well, see these dollar bills? That's how I want you to think. Every dollar bill is a worker.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, remember when Dad had all those employees, right? How was I doing? They go, oh, really good. I go, now I don't have any employees. How are we doing? Well, so that all ended. That went away. So what you want to do is build as many workers as you can, meaning dollar bills. The more
Yeah, I like
workers you have, the more options you're going to have.
Mhm.
Right. So the more manpower, if you will, the more things you're going to be able to do when opportunity comes. So I kind of put it in that kind of analogy for them. And it seemed to work. I mean, my one son, who's 18 now, he has a goal of being financially independent by 24.
Nice.
Wow.
And it's laid out. He's working, he's just turned 18, he's making 50,000 a year. He's putting it away. He's looking at, doing 2 flats and getting in one and moving. He's got the whole plan laid out. And the nice thing about when you're 18, by 24, financially independent isn't that difficult. Okay. Because you've taken on no debt. I said, stay here, bank that, build your assets, and then go when you're ready. That's the thing a parent can give their children. I know they say don't let them live in the basement and all that kind of stuff. I'm saying, like, take advantage of no overhead.
That's what I tell my kids. I'm like, our youngest just moved out last year. They were going to build onto our house, and they ended up buying a house, which ended up being a good decision. But my husband and I were both like, because we got along and we liked them. So guys, stay as long as you want, because you got
Free
it
lodging
made.
is hard to beat,
You
right?
got it made, Yeah.
Andrea has a 53-acre farm, so
A little bit of room there.
easy enough to build on it. Hey, you guys, we are actually wrapping it up, and I know we're having a great conversation. We'd love for you to come back. So if you see across the screen, we have how you guys, not only you, but anybody who's listening, who is a coach, who has some knowledge that we want to absorb, come on the show with us. We are thrilled that you both made the time today to be here with us. And what can I say? I'm blessed. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
It's been awesome. I appreciate the time.
Love the discussion.
So what can we say? Have an amazing rest of your day, everybody.
Happy Flag Day, everybody.
Oh,
Happy Flag Day.